Good morning, everybody. Thomas Fleming here. Well, I'm up a little bit later than I normally am because I didn't get a full night's sleep with these pesky coyotes running around the camp, howling and making noise. Not frightening, just noisy. It's like a bunch of kids running around. Nothing wrong with that either, but they're just noisy sometimes. So the sun's up, so I'm trying to find a place that I can keep the sun on me where I can still see what I'm doing. Okay, now that I am seated in my swing, I get the camera set up and we can begin working on the lesson. One of the things that I've felt the need to talk about, people keep asking me all the time, how do you hear God? How do you know what He wants you to do? How do you get involved in this stuff, in the need that we have today? How do you do all this stuff? Well, you follow the Bible. It's been well documented. Old and New Testament, there's, some 70 times or more where it talks about prayer and fasting. Now, we know that Jesus fasted, and we'll cover that in a bit in the Bible study, but we don't have to do these long, drawn-out 40-day and 40-night fasts where we get tempted by the devil. That just shows what's possible. That doesn't mean that's what we have to do. You can fast. In fact, we all fast every day. That's why the first meal of the day is called breakfast, or to separate the words, break, fast. You can't eat while you're sleeping, so you're fasting for 8 hours maybe. And even if I, didn't sleep the entire night all the way through, I didn't get out of bed and get up and get something to eat. So you're fasting every night, so the best time for you to pray is early in the morning. And you don't have to go cover yourself in ashes and roll around on the ground and pray and all this other stuff. And you don't even have to get on your knees. If you can do all this stuff that you need to do without doing that, just understand getting on your knees is a humbling gesture, a respectful gesture. But if you can do it, just sitting or standing wherever you're at, you could pray at work and they won't even know. If you don't put your head down, nobody would even know that you're praying. So when it says to pray without ceasing, that's how you do that. You just talk to God all day long. If I go too far over here, I can't tell if I can be seen. I guess I'm going to have to put the camera right here. So let me go ahead and get this camera positioned, and then we're going to look at some Bible verses that talk about this. We know all about it. All of our patriarchs have done it. We know Moses fasted and prayed and fasted, and they're almost always together. They tell us to pray without ceasing, but then it says to pray and fast. As a combination, it's used all the time. Basically what it is, and why you fast, is you're denying your body. Praying allows you to connect to God. Denying your body means that you're taking the precedence and you're pushing everything towards God and away from yourself. That way you can know that what you're being told is coming from God. If there's sin in your life and you're praying that God to answer a question, don't expect to get a good answer, or at least an answer that you expect. You might get an answer that's stop sinning, and I'll talk to you more. So be sin-free. So confess your sins to Christ. That should be an immediate thing every day. Our daily prayer tells us to pray that prayer every day. Give us this day our daily bread. So as you do these things, as you prepare for the day, start it with the Lord and keep it with the Lord. Don't give up. Again, don't sin. And he says, well, we have a sinful nature. How do we not sin? The second you realize you're sinning, whatever it is, stop it, turn away from it, and then confess it. And the minute you do that, you're sin-free again. That's how this works. We can't be sin-free on our own. But with Jesus, we can be sin-free, at least during our waking hours. And it's real easy to do. Just be aware of it. We're all trying to be sin-free. But sometimes we can't because we have a sinful nature. Rinse and repeat. Stop, repent, and ask for forgiveness. You can do that in less than 30 seconds. That doesn't mean you go, after you've done that, go back to your sinning again. No, you should be, if you're doing this right and honestly, you should have more and more time between your sinning. And you got to, like I said, you got to make sure that you're doing things that are helpful to stop that. I use the chocolate cake example. If you walk by a deli with a chocolate cake in the window every day and you just have to go in there and get some chocolate cake and you're not supposed to eat chocolate cake, take a different route. If you can still see it on the other side of the street, take a different street. Do everything you can to help yourself. Don't sit there and walk right next to it and look at it and stare at it and go, God's going to give me the strength. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But if it's a sin that you're committed to, don't put yourself in that situation. In these times, we're going to need a lot of strength. The cartoon I put up about the UFOs and the aliens, of course I like Marvin the Martian. We know that there's no people on Mars, but they used to think there were. We really haven't known about Mars for that long. The rovers that we have up there are the best bit of information collecting that we've ever had. We've also got the Mars satellite that's mapping the planet, and you can even find the rovers occasionally when it's over the top of them. That is the only planet in our solar system that we're aware of that is entirely inhabited by robots. Think about that. And I've listened to a couple of physicists. I listened to, what's his name? Neil deGrasse is his name. He's got a third name in there, I forget what it is. But he's talked about going to Mars. Why would we want to go to Mars? We have an infinite curiosity of knowing about things. It's really, I think, frankly, why we went to the moon, other than the fact that it was a political game or a race with the Russians. But we're curious. Why do we climb mountains? Because we can and we're curious. We are always curious about things. Be that curious about God. Want to know as much about God as you can. For those of us that are old, we may not remember back this far, but remember when you first met somebody of the opposite sex that you were attracted to. You tried to find out as much information as you could. You wanted to learn. You wanted to be with that person. You talk for hours about, life in general, about things. That time is special, and it's a time that we all should have continually. If we marry this person, we should have that continually with our spouse. We should have it continually with God. We know how to do these things, but we get distracted. So when you start doing these things, do these on a regular time frame. You don't have to fast every day nonstop. If you fasted every day nonstop, you'd die. These guys didn't fast all the time. They fasted when they felt the need, when God told them you need some extra help here, or when they felt that things were bad they would fast. It's denying yourself. That sign to God says that you can trust me because I'm putting all my faith in you. All right, let me get my camera positioned and then we're going to go through the Bible a little bit. See you in a bit. Okay. Someone gave me this cool strap yesterday so I don't have to hang my glasses on my shirts, because after a while the shirts start looking rather ragged because I keep hanging the glasses there. So I can keep these right here and they won't leave me. Sometimes I put them in my pocket and then they get broken. That's why I have extra. These are just reading glasses. I don't need glasses normally. Okay. Well, we're talking about prayer and fasting. We're going to look at the best example, but not necessarily one we need to duplicate. I'm in Matthew chapter 4. And Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. That's the key. He was led by the Spirit. So you can fast on short terms, but don't try these long-term ones unless you know the Spirit's going to be with you for that, because this is not going to be easy. And it also proves something, too, about Jesus. He had to be in good physical shape. Now, he probably fasted a lot. He watched what he ate, but he ate pretty much the same foods. He wasn't on a diet. He was on a Jewish diet, no pork, no shellfish, and that kind of stuff, to a degree. But we learned from Peter that, you can eat anything. Most of those diets were back then. It was because God knew about those animals. They didn't have refrigeration, so you couldn't keep pork. We can go to the supermarket and get fresh meat anytime we want. They couldn't do that back then. So put everything in their time. And shellfish and all that, they're bottom feeders. They're the vacuum cleaners of the sea. They pick up all the garbage and the junk. That's why we don't eat buzzards and we don't eat other carrion type birds, because they eat all the stuff to clean up the world for us, get rid of diseases. And their guts can handle it, and ours can't. Okay. Into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterwards he was hungry. No duh. Jesus was hungry. He had all the same situations that we do. He was human. That's why he did all this, to show us that we can do this too. Now, he took 30 years to get to this point, to being able to do this. So we can't expect to match this overnight. But he got there. So we can put that as a goal, to be like Jesus. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. Be like Jesus. That's the goal. That's why we have this Bible. Okay, and I'm just going to read a little bit here. Read the first temptation and then we'll go on. Now when the tempter came to him, we all know who that is. If you are the Son of God. See how Satan is? He knows he's the Son of God. But if you are, by twisting it, he puts it in doubt. Now Jesus knows who he is. Satan knows who he is. But he puts it in a form of a demeaning question. If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become bread. And in 4, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. That's why we need to read every day. And that comes from Deuteronomy 8:3. Okay. Now what do we know about fasting? What can we learn about how to fast and what to do with it? Well, let's turn to Matthew 6:14. It's just over a couple of chapters. Matthew 6:16. Moreover, when you fast, do not be like the hypocrites with a sad countenance or sad face. Do not walk around and let everybody know you're fasting if you're doing a public fast. It's like praying out loud and sounding trumpets before you pray. Jesus said they've got their reward. Well, praying like that is the same thing. Let's continue on. For they disfigure their faces that they may appear to men to be fasting. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. You want your prayers answered? Don't let everybody know you're fasting. Do it privately. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in a secret place. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. So when you do your public fasting, you can fast if you're at home. If you're off on the weekend and you want to fast, you can do that. And again, you don't have to fast 40 days and 40 nights. For most of us, that would be physically impossible. Nothing's impossible through God. However, I would classify that at my age as tempting God. We're told later on in his temptation challenges that if he throws himself off a building or off a cliff, the angels would catch him. He says, you shan't tempt your God. Don't put yourself in a situation that you don't think you're going to survive. That would be tempting God to survive, to protect you. He may not. Unless he tells you to do it, don't do it, and you better be real sure that it's him talking to you. We can, in our own mind, because our minds are capable, create a situation. A lot of people daydream, and I do it a lot too. And whatever we daydream about isn't going to necessarily happen because we daydream about it. And you want to be careful about daydreaming. Don't daydream about a temptation. That would be bad. Don't daydream about somebody being harmed. I don't care if you like him or not. Don't daydream about him getting hit by a bus. Maybe you don't like your supervisor. Don't daydream about stuff that you know you don't want to have happen in reality. You can think about things, but the best thing to do is to think about God. Read a scripture and think about it. Imagine what it would have been like back then for them to be that way. We have little windows of people's lives, but we don't see every day of what their lives were like. We just get little glimpses of what their thoughts and what they did during a certain time during their life. We don't have a day-to-day account of Jesus. He covered all the things that we need to know, and we can have to take his word for it, being God, that he was sin-free. We know we can't physically or mentally be sin-free without him. That's why we need him. Okay, let's turn to Psalms. I've got two verses, but let's go to the first one. 35:13. Where is it? This is a longer song. Again, Psalms means songs. Let me just go back to the beginning so we can be in the context. Plead my cause, O Lord, for those who strive with me. Fight against those who fight against me. This is a Psalm 35. Take hold of shield and buckler and stand up for my help. Also draw out the spear and stop those who pursue me. Say to my soul, I am your salvation. Let those be put to shame and brought to dishonor who seek after my life. Let those who turn back let those be turned back and brought to confusion who plot my hurt. Let them be like chaff before the wind, blown away. Let the angel of the Lord chase them. Make sure they don't come back. And their way be dark and slippery. Let the angel of the Lord pursue them, for without cause they are hidden. Their net for me in the pit. For without cause they've hidden their net for me in the pit. Got to watch the punctuation. Which they have dug without cause for my life. Let destruction come upon them unexpectedly, and let his net that is hidden catch himself into that very destruction. let him fall. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord, and my soul shall rejoice in his salvation. All my bones shall say, Lord, who is like you, delivering the poor from him who is too strong for him? Yes, the poor and the needy from him who plunders him. Fierce witnesses rise up. They ask me things that I do not know. They reward me evil for good, to the sorrow of my soul. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled myself with fasting, and my prayer would return to my own heart. And that's our fasting verse. So whatever things are going on, pray to God. Pray to God about things that have to do with your life. If you don't like the way someone's treating you, pray to God. Ask that he will deal with it, that they will deal with you properly. And if not, chase them away. And then be patient. Be faithful. He will deal with it. Okay, turning in Psalms over to 69:10. Just another example for prayer and fasting. When I wept and chastened my soul with fasting. You prepare yourself. In that same chapter of 69, moving over to 30. It's cold out here this morning. I will praise the name of God with a song. I will magnify him with thanksgiving. So that's what these songs are for. All right, now I'm going to turn over to Ezra. Ezra will be before the Psalms. I'm in Ezra 8:21. Then I proclaimed my fast there at the river Asheva, that we might humble ourselves before our God, to seek from him the right way for us and our little ones and all our possessions. For the wind is coming up a little bit. For I was ashamed to request of the king an escort of soldiers and horsemen to help against the enemy on the road, because we have spoken to the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon us, those for good who seek him, but his power and his wrath are against all who forsake him. So we fasted and entreated our God for this, and he answered our prayer. So, you want to convince God you're serious? Pray, and then add to it fasting. It will convince God that you really mean what you're saying. These are people in the Bible that have done this repeatedly. Jesus did it, and he's our example. Prayer and fasting together are a winning combination. Now, we're told to pray without ceasing, but not to fast without ceasing, because you'd die. So fasting is something to augment the prayer when it's needed. If it's something important, if you're praying about something and you're not seeing results, add fasting to it. It may make it happen faster. It may make it happen, period. You've got to have faith with all this. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. So you put all these pieces together, that's the whole thing. We have a picture of how we're to be by looking through the Bible. If you just do one of these things, it may not work. Sometimes it's big enough. We saw where they were trying to, in Jesus' name, cast out demons, and they couldn't. And he said something that powerful can only be dealt with by much prayer and fasting. So if you're having something or a problem that you can't seem to get rid of, add fasting to it. We should fast anyway, as part of our, weekly or monthly devotion to God. We should have fasting. It will be good for us. Our body likes fasting. If you don't eat, it helps to flush out and to correct problems that are in our body that we may have added to it by wrong eating. I've talked about this in the past, that our diet is slowly becoming deadly to mankind. Satan wants us all dead. If he can get us to start eating things that are bad for us, we'll get weaker, we'll get more diseases, more pestilence. We're told in the Bible it's going to happen at this time anyway. So do as much as you can to take care of your body. Watch what you buy at the market. It used to be, I could say, if you go to the market to buy food, don't go down the aisles. Stay on the outside. Because everything down the aisles is processed food. And depending on what it is and how they processed it, it may have 0 nutrients. Its main ingredient may be sugar. Go down the cereal aisle. Even look at potentially good cereals. Look how much sugar is in Raisin Bran. You can look, of course, how much sugar is in kids' cereals. You wonder why kids seem to have, ADHD or just too hyper. Look at how much sugar you're feeding them. Don't let them get started in it. They won't like it when you take it off their diet. Start teaching them young. I eat a little bit of oatmeal, but you can do things with oatmeal. You can put too much sugar in oatmeal when you go to do that. I like to use the old-fashioned oatmeal, and I cook it in my microwave. I might chop up a banana, put on it. Or you can put blueberries on it or something. You can put some fruit on it, but make sure it's good fruit. And I've talked before, I put slightly green bananas. Not real green, slightly green. Once they start sugaring up, they can have a great deal of sugar in them, an awful lot. So you want them just slightly green. So there's a food choice. Not only should you eat bananas, but you should only eat them before they fully sugarified. They're the only fruit out there that gets more sugar the longer it sits. And you can put them in the refrigerator, which will slow down that process. You leave them out, they're going to get ripe real fast. I eat avocados. You can do the same thing with them. Buy them slightly green. If you can't pinch them, they're not ready to eat. And I put one a day up on the top of my little kitchen area so they can get some sunlight, and it ripens faster. You keep the rest of them in the shade so they don't ripen as fast, and then eventually they will ripen. I like to buy them in bulk. So eventually I move them to my cooler, and that slows the process down. And that way I can get like 10 at a time. I can't seem to get any more than that because then they ripen too much. And I don't like avocado that's almost guacamole inside. And I do have guacamole. And one of my foods that I eat that I probably shouldn't, but I do because I like it, is I get corn chips and I dip them in salsa and guacamole. So I'm getting some good and a little bit of bad, hoping it will balance it out. You've got to have some form of cheat meals, but you don't eat cheat meals every day. I also eat pistachios. They're good for you. I used to eat a lot of peanuts until I realized that peanuts are not nuts. They're beans, legumes. And beans in limited amounts are okay, but not too much. We tend to get things salty when we buy foods. We have a limit of what our daily amount of salt is. Get over that and you start causing problems in your body. So you got to be careful. You can have salty food occasionally. Just don't add salt to everything you eat. I add pepper to pretty much everything I eat, but I don't always add salt. And I like the big flake salts that I get the kosher salt, and of course they advertise it as sea salt. All salt is sea salt, so they are relying on people's ignorances, I guess. Okay, so you take care of your body, you take care of your mind, you take care of your soul. It's all covered right here on how to do that. You can't do it day one. You have to build this up. You have to learn it. And over time, do the things that are on it. If you're finding you've got a problem, look at what you're supposed to be doing and see what things you're not doing and get back to it. Prayer and fasting is the best way to get God to notice. Okay, until we meet in the clouds, which has got to be soon with these crazy aliens going around. I got off on my rabbit trail on that and forgot to mention that we've got the government saying, we're not going to say whether this is an alien or not, we're just calling it a UFO. It would be real easy for them to say, it was not an alien, it was a balloon, or it was a flying drone, or whatever it is, it's not an alien. Now there probably are aliens out there in the way of demons that we could potentially see, but our government's lying again to let us know that there's aliens up there. So when we get raptured, oh my God, they were abducted by aliens. That would be about the time the Antichrist would show up. Okay, until we meet in the clouds, God bless. It's so nice in the morning before anybody gets out. This is the public area of this park. They've got covered areas for day activities. You might want to have a birthday party or something. A couple of them here, you have to reserve them. So therefore, there may be children around, so you have to watch. And no drinking in public areas. Handicap parking. So this is a typical state park setup. They don't all look like this, of course, but what you're going to find is you get your picnic areas. Over there in the distance, you see my swing that I sit at. And I want you to look at that sky. It's beautiful. We even have the moon up there. The lenses on these cameras don't do it justice, but it's beautiful. And the sun is to my left, so I'm going to stop panning. Get out and enjoy this. Last night when I came back late, I came back about 8 o'clock, I counted over 20 deer in the park. The river's still, it's still a dirty river looking. It's typical. You get a little bit of reflection off the sky, but it's still dirty. And I'm going to head over to my chair. Looks like it's dried out finally. It's been a couple of days. It rained a good deal yesterday. That's why I took advantage and went to my storage unit to do some organization. I still don't have my cooler yet. They didn't deliver it. I was trying to kill two birds with one stone, but it didn't work. Nobody wanted to carry that big box, but it's supposed to be out for delivery today. So when I sit here and teach, that's my view. How about that for inspiration? And I am surprised that I am looking at the river. I don't see any floating trash. Praise God. I just tossed my Bible down on the seat. That's what that noise was. This morning about 3 a.m., maybe 4 a.m., a pack of coyotes came around the camp, and they were howling and making all kinds of noise. They got real close to the tent one time, so I clapped my hands real loud, and that drove them off. But I could hear them around the general area until sunrise. I'm not afraid of them either, so I mean, I've got people that worry about me out here, and I feel absolutely comfortable. One, the most important reason, God is with me always, so I don't fear from that point of view. And I also know what critters are around. There's no bear here, no alligators. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, they don't have those around here. If I go into the North Georgia mountains, they do have bears. And there may be cougar out there somewhere, but I don't see them. I'm looking around, I see there's one high bird flying, but I don't see my eagle that I saw yesterday, so I'm going to have to look for it. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the study. Stay close to God in these times. God bless.